Hi, I'm here to talk to you about some new resources that were developed to serve underrepresented groups, often referred to as URG. In 2023-2024, Literacy Link Niagara applied for Skills for Success in-year funding to be able to develop new tools for the LBS community. We partnered with 4 additional learning networks of Ontario, Adult Basic Education Association, Literacy in Durham Region, Literacy Link South Central, and Rideau Ottawa Valley Learning Network. The project had 2 parts. Part 1 was to host 2 open space virtual sessions that brought together literacy and basic skills staff from across the province and asked the question, who is not being served? So this was an opportunity to just come together and brainstorm and consider who we don't often necessarily tailor our services to, and who may not feel as comfortable walking in an LBS program door. We took that information and it helped us develop some tools in part 2. Part 2 was the creation of tools to help encourage discussions around how to support those who may be underserved. And of course, who's underserved will look different in every community. So we wanted to make sure that we provided a variety of tools to be able to speak to different groups and different communities. 2 packages were created, a learner package. So an LBS staff member can actually take this and directly talk to learners about equity, diversity, inclusion, and even decolonization in a way that makes sense in an LBS program, as well as an LBS staff package that can be taken to staff meetings. So for this video, I'm going to talk to you and walk you through what the learner package looks like. We do have the LBS staff package available in another video. We just wanted to make sure that these were short and sweet. So I'm going to switch over and I'm going to stop my screen share to be able to take you into this piece. I needed to pull back, and now you'll be able to see my PowerPoint with potential notes below, because in our learner package, we did include the notes for the presenter. So it's just something that a presenter could scan and then pretty much immediately deliver. So this is called A Voice Other Than My Own. This is the learner package. And this, of course, is your first slide. But when we move over to the second slide, we talk about a group agreement. And this is something that's often done in the equity, diversity, inclusion, and decolonization world when we're talking about these topics. So we are looking today, the learner will see today we will participate in a respectful learning space, respect confidentiality, allow uncomfortable conversation, and engage in compassionate discussion. Of course, with something as large as this, we also are going to want to talk to the learners more about it. So we have scripted a little bit below to help the presenter. So the presenter might say, today we're going to talk about bias and listen to some pieces of writing. It's important that we're open, listen to others, and reflect on our own experience. And then the presenter may ask, what is a respectful learning space? How can we encourage a respectful learning space today? We really want to make sure that we're driving home those pieces with our learners and that they're very much engaged in creating that respectful learning space, because it's not something they just exist in, it's something that they can foster. And when we talk about underrepresented groups, it's not just you that makes a space welcome, it's also those that occupy the space as learners. Then the presenter might say, I would like to ask that before we start, the group can agree on a few things. Give me a thumbs up if you agree to each part, and then you would walk through the pieces on the screen. Today, we will participate in a safe learning space, meaning we will be respectful of others' ideas and allow room for different opinions and feelings. Today, we will respect confidentiality. Whatever is discussed in this room is left here. We won't talk about it after we leave. Today, we will allow uncomfortable conversation. Things we talk about may make you or others uncomfortable. We will talk openly and honestly because these issues are important. And today, we will engage in compassionate discussion. We will think of others and try to see different viewpoints. And I've just noticed that there is a word in here that we had group discussion about and we actually changed. And it's changed on the presentation, but it's not changed in the notes. And maybe this is a discussion that you could actually take to your staff. But we had some staff that felt very much that the word safe was not a good word to use, while others felt that it was a good word to use, and that respectful was something that we could guarantee more, that somebody that we could create that feeling of a respectful space over a safe space. So this is just an example of how you can tweak depending on your culture and your experience with the learners in the room. Maybe you want to tweak some of the language to really reflect your own. And of course, this is just a script. You don't have to use it at all, but it does help with the presentation for someone who might be a little bit uncomfortable with the topic. The next slide is about understanding bias, and it's just a very quick overview to bring a discussion of what is bias into your classroom. So we have what is bias and a list of four different types of bias: stereotypes, prejudice, discrimination, and ignorance. And then a discussion of what is overt versus covert bias, which of course are very big words, but it's something that makes really good conversation with learners and with anyone really, because it might not be something that we talk about often. So again, it's scripted below. You may have heard of bias, but what exactly does it mean? And you can leave this open to see if any of your learners have some ideas. You might encourage some discussion, or you might move on. Bias is thinking that one thing, person, or group compared with another is better or worse, usually in a way considered to be unfair. Types of bias include stereotypes, a widely held oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. And it's often related to a specific race or gender. And you might ask your learners, can you think of any stereotypes? Prejudice, believing something about a group that is not based in reason or experience. So really this large overarching belief against a certain group. Discrimination is the treatment of a group of people based on stereotypes and prejudice. So it's the action. And ignorance, not knowing or having all the information. So just being unaware, and how that, that's part of bias, and that can lead to some unfair treatment and action. And then there's the big words, overt versus covert bias. So overt is obvious. It's something we can see. It's clear, easy to identify. Someone using racist language, spray painting hateful messages, graffiti on walls or on personal property, versus covert, not easy to identify. It's hidden. So an example is an employer not hiring a specific race, but they never say that that's the reason that people aren't hired. So it's hard for someone to say that's racist. They might say, it seems that that's racist. And that's a good conversation to have with your learners, because that's a very it can be very muddy, this discussion, but we can see that both overt and covert bias would affect a group of people. And of course, at any time, I encourage you to get your learners to talk. So if you feel that you can foster conversation, do it. That's really what these packages are about. And then the last piece, we move on to what we call bibliotherapy. It's a really big word. It's been around in the literacy and basic skills world, usually run by Linder or Literacy in Durham region, and they helped us specifically with the bibliotherapy piece of this project. So we ask that our learners will listen and read along to a piece of writing. and that you then ask them what did they think about what they heard. I have included some additional questions underneath this slide for you as a leader to, if you, after you ask what did you think about what you heard, if there's no conversation, these three questions, they can start that conversation, that ball rolling, so that your learners will participate, because often it's very people are very nervous to be the first one to speak, but if you can get them rolling, especially around the pieces of writing that we chose, I imagine that your momentum will build really quickly. So additional questions you might ask: what did you like about the piece? What didn't you like about the piece? And what is one word or phrase that you felt connected to? So I'm going to show you what that package looks like. It looks like this. So again, it's called A Voice Other Than My Own: Resources for Literacy and Basic Skills Learners. And I'm going to scroll through and just show you a few of the pages. So your table of contents will show how to use these resources. So we have outlined it in this document as well. The readings passages specifically. And then also on pages 32, we added a few writing exercises. So if you wanted to continue this conversation, you could take it into writing and get your learners to do some more self-reflection. So I'm going to scroll through. This is just really an overview. I'm not going to read it to you because you can open up that document, but I want to show you what it looks like. So in the LBS staff package, we have broken down the readings into different topics that identify specific groups that we're so that you can pick and choose which groups you want to focus on. For the learner package, we just have a selection of readings. So you can pick 1, 2, 3, whatever you think, readings to do with your group. These are not in any order, so you don't have to start here and go through. Just pick ones that you feel will foster conversation and also make an impact in your classroom. So the first one is When We Were Alone. And this is actually from a children's book. And it's just it's a little section. So feel free to share the image because images often help people. We like to print so that you can have your learners actually follow along with the document. So you would just print the few pages that go with We Were Alone. You would read them out aloud, and then that's when you would start the questions. So again, these images, they really do go along. And then next we have a very different piece, Anthem by Leonard Cohen. And this is, these are song lyrics. So you can read them aloud if that's something that speaks to you and you think that they might speak to your learners. Every Human Has Rights. This is National Geographic. Again, this is another book for kids, but it really speaks to different experiences, and it's just this book is brilliant if you can actually get this whole book. It's poetry, but it also includes some quotes, and then it has just some general writing. There is a piece about I Wasn't Born a Minority. So someone who is in a wheelchair thinking about inclusivity. There is a poem from a book called Lifelines. We do like poetry, but we have tried to choose poetry that is easily understood and especially in a group setting. The Mirror. So this is really about allowing your learner to reflect on themselves and their own experience, because of course our own experience and how we walk through the world is often how we see the world in that lens. So that can be a great place, especially if you have learners that you think might turn away from a discussion of bias and feel uncomfortable, the mirror is a great place to start. From the book Trans Love. So this is a great book with transgender and non-binary voices. We have a piece called The Rents, and this is really about somebody who has changed their name to match their identity and not understanding why it's difficult for people to change. There can be some language in a few of these poems that make people uncomfortable. I would encourage you to read them first. My Tongue is Divided in Two, and that is about language and works well if you're having a discussion about newcomers or immigrants. There's a piece from the book called Poor Bashing, and this is someone who lived on the Toronto streets. And it's a discussion of, I think this is great for learners. I think this is great for anyone. It's about raised to poor bash. So someone who grew up in a house where they often, look down their nose at someone in poverty, and then she ends up finding herself going onto welfare. And it's just an excellent way to encourage people to reflect on their bias. So I definitely would suggest, if you have the group for it, to try that. The Owl and the Chimpanzee reminds me, of course, of The Owl and the Pussycat. But this is really about the way that our decisions, they just really shape our experience, and that things can happen to us outside of our control as well. So that's an excellent one to do with learners because it sounds really fun, but it's very deep. Scars and Stars by Jessie Thistle. I could have used a million poems from this book. We chose Saint Stella for this package. This is about somebody who has some substance abuse issues. So, and it's done very much in a narrative storytelling style. So it can work really well with learners, and it's relatively short. Too Black. This is something that's actually, the first time I found this was on, it was on social media on a meme. So just something that was, being shared around, and it's really, about how somebody might experience life if they were living as a Black person. So I also just really like that the words are bolded at the end, because you can take this into another lesson, and it also just really drives home those words and the meaning. The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. So the piece that was picked for this, from this, and again, this is another book where we could have picked another, a whole bunch of, a whole, many pages of this book, but this is really about, it's an easy step into a conversation of disability, and this is about when this little girl, she needed glasses, and the bias that her mother held against wearing glasses. So this is a really great conversation starter for bias, because of course people don't feel so nervous to talk about the conversation as they might about something as deep and emotional as race, or religion, or newcomer immigrants. So this is an excellent piece that you can use. And again, it's that narrative storytelling, so people can feel connected to the author. Then at the end, we just have a few writing pieces that you may choose to use or not. And you can just literally print the pages and hand them out. You can choose one or all of them. So the first one is, what does it mean to be included, and what does it feel like to be included? What strategies could we use to create an inclusive and supportive community for learning? So this is really a discussion, this allows reflection that might translate into discussion about creating an inclusive and supportive space, again, because it's the responsibility of all that occupy that space. And then we have, why is it important to create an inclusive and supportive community for learning? So it really, that one can act as the follow-up to the former question. So we're just really asking our learners to reflect, and have that discussion that they're really a part of the community and a part of the learning space, and that they have a responsibility. And I think that that can be very empowering for learners to know that they have such an impact. So make sure you drive that home. And if you have any other questions, please reach out to Literacy Link Niagara, and we are happy to provide you with support. Use these, adapt, and implement them in whatever best reflects your learning environment. Thank you.